Did you know that millions of people right here in the UK could be on the wrong tax code as we speak? Potentially overpaying by hundreds of pounds every single year. It's a massive, super common problem, but it's one that's actually pretty easy to fix once you know how. So in this guide, which has been developed by the expert tax advisors at My Tax Accountant, we're going to crack that cryptic message on your payslip and put you firmly back in control of your money. You know that feeling, right? Your payslip lands, you have a quick look, and there it is. A random-looking string of letters and numbers like 1257L, and you just think, what on earth does that actually mean? If you've ever felt that little flicker of confusion, trust me, you are not alone. It's a mystery for so many people, but we're about to solve it together.
And just so you know, all the insights we're covering today come directly from the expert team at My Tax Accountant. They're one of the UK's most trusted accounting firms, so you're in very good hands.
Okay, let's get right into it. For our example today, we're going to use the standard tax code for the 2025/26 tax year, which is 1257L. Now, look, while the numbers themselves will change in the future, the way you decode it, well, that stays exactly the same. Once you get this, you'll be able to understand any tax code they throw at you.
So here's what we've got on the cards. First, we'll tackle that mystery on your payslip. Then, we'll get into decoding the numbers and letters. After that, we'll look at why your code might suddenly change. Then, the important part, how to actually check your code. We'll answer some of your top questions, and finally, we'll talk about your next steps so you can walk away feeling confident. Let's get started.
So, let's start our little investigation, shall we? What exactly is this code that keeps showing up on your payslip? Think of yourself as a bit of a detective for the next few minutes. I promise, by the end of this, you'll have totally cracked the case. At its very heart, a tax code is just a simple instruction. That's all it is. It's like a short message that HMRC sends directly to your employer, and it basically says, hey, here's how much this person can earn before you need to start taking tax off them. It's the absolute key that decides your take-home pay. Right, let's get to the fun part, decoding those numbers and letters. I know it might look like complete jargon, but it's actually made of two really simple parts. Let's start with the numbers. So using our 2025/26 example, we've got the number 1257. This isn't just pulled out of thin air. It's the most important part of your code. So the big question is, how do we turn this number into an actual real-world figure? Well, it's actually surprisingly simple. You just multiply the number by 10. That is it. Seriously. This one quick calculation reveals a really important figure for your finances. So, with our example, 1,257 times 10 gives us £12,570. What this means for the 2025/26 tax year is that's how much you can earn before you pay a single penny of income tax. This is known as your personal allowance. Pretty much everyone in the UK who pays tax gets one. For the 2025/26 tax year, it's set at £12,570. Anything you earn above that gets taxed. Simple as that. So what about that letter that's tacked on to the end? Well, the letter gives the whole thing context. Most people will have an L, which just means you get the standard, bog standard personal allowance. But you might see other letters. Now stay with me here. This is important. A BR code means all your income from that job is taxed at the basic rate. You often see this if you've got a second job. You see, each letter tells its own little story about your tax situation. Okay, so you've cracked your tax code. You're feeling pretty good about it. But then, 1 month, it changes. This is where things can get a bit confusing, and honestly, it catches a lot of people out. Your take-home pay might suddenly drop, and you're left wondering, why did that happen? And this is exactly why checking your code is so important. Let's take Sarah, a freelance graphic designer based in Manchester. She was mistakenly put on an old, incorrect tax code. Over the year, it cost her an extra £144 in tax. Now, it might not sound like a fortune, but it's her money. She earned it. It just goes to show how a small error can have a real financial impact. So what could trigger a change like that? Well, it could be any number of things, really. Maybe HMRC is collecting a bit of unpaid tax from a previous year. Or perhaps you started getting a new company benefits, like a company car or private medical insurance. Even just starting a new job or having a change to your state benefits can lead to a new tax code being sent out. Okay, here's a quick tip straight from the team at My Tax Accountant. If you ever see an X, or sometimes it's written as W1/M1, at the end of your tax code, you need to pay close attention. This is often what's called an emergency tax code. It means your tax is being worked out only on what you've earned in that specific pay packet, not across the whole year.
So if you've had any gaps in employment, this can easily lead to you overpaying tax. All of this naturally leads us to the most important part of our chat today: how you can actually check your code. I mean, knowing what it means is great, but making sure it's correct is what really matters. It's your money, after all, so let's make sure you're keeping as much of it as you're legally entitled to. And the good news is it's a pretty simple 3-step process. First, just find your latest payslip or your P60. Second, log in to your personal tax account on the gov.uk website. That is by far the fastest way to check everything. And third, if anything at all looks a bit off, just pick up the phone and give HMRC a call. Just make sure you've got your national insurance number handy. Your online personal tax account is honestly your best friend here. You can see a full breakdown of your income, check what information your employer has been sending to HMRC, and see exactly how they've calculated your tax code. It's all there for you 24/7. You'll definitely want to hear this part. Statistically, a huge number of employees just don't bother to check their tax code. It's a massive oversight. As we saw with Sarah's story, mistakes can and do happen. And at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to make sure you're not paying too much tax. Please, don't just assume it's correct. Okay, let's quickly tackle a few of the most common questions that we get asked all the time over at my tax accountant. First one up, this is a big one for all the self-employed people out there. Do you even have a tax code? Well, the answer is it depends. If you're only self-employed, then no, you won't have a PAYE tax code. You handle all of your tax through your self-assessment tax return. But if you've got a job on the side of your business, then yes, you absolutely will have a tax code for that employment income. And here's another one we hear all the time. What happens if you have more than one job? How does that work with your tax code? Typically, HMRC will apply your entire tax-free personal allowance to what it sees as your main job. Then, your second job will probably be put on a BR code, which stands for basic rate. This just tells your second employer to tax all of your earnings from that job at 20%. It's a neat way to stop you from getting your allowance twice and then getting hit with a surprise tax bill down the line. So, let's wrap this all up. What are the key things you really need to remember to stay in control of your tax code from now on?
Let's just quickly recap. Your tax code is simply an instruction. The numbers, when you multiply them by 10, equal your tax-free allowance for the year. The letter gives the whole thing context. And, most importantly, it is up to you to check it because an incorrect code will absolutely cost you real money.
Now, before we finish, a very quick but very important disclaimer. All of the information we've discussed today is for general guidance only. Everyone's tax situation is unique, so you really shouldn't rely on this guide alone to make your financial decisions. For personalized advice that's actually tailored specifically to you, we would strongly recommend you speak to a professional. The experts at My Tax Accountant are on hand and ready to help. You can give them a call on 020-857-08531, or you can drop them an email at info@mytaxaccountant.co.uk. If you want more details, you can read the full article that this was based on over on the My Tax Accountant blog. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more straightforward guides just like this one. Thanks so much for joining us. Now go and check your tax code. Are you absolutely sure you're not overpaying?